Hello everyone, welcome to the video. Thank you for joining us today. Today we'll be discussing the therapist's experience of therapy. Before we get started, let's do a bit of an introduction. I'll start. I'm Manaal. I'm an integrative psychotherapist, and I also write blogs for the BACP, mainly in the spirituality forum and also generally.
Great, thank you for that, Manaal. Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Sahar Ahmed. I am a counselling psychologist.
Thank you, Sana. I'm Sahar. I'm a psychotherapist and counsellor, and I work integratively as well.
Great. Okay, so I think I'll come in with a sort of open-ended question for us all. So as we're all therapists here, I guess I'm wondering what everybody's experience of accessing therapy has been.
Really good question, Sana. I like that. I think when I first started out, it was quite hard to access counselling, and that's back in the 90s. And there wasn't very many Asian or people that looked like me in the field. And my first experience was with a non-Asian, with a counsellor. It was very lovely, but you know, I didn't know what to expect. And what happened for me was, you know, somebody came in to the session and brought a plate of food to the counsellor, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, well maybe this is what it's supposed to be like. I didn't go back to her; it didn't feel comfortable, but. Yeah, it was really weird. I mean, I had no clue at the time. So I think things have changed, obviously, you know, over the time. But that was when I reflect back and I think, oh gosh, I laugh at it now. I find it quite funny. Mm.
Yeah. When was that? Sorry, this experience?
Oh, this is about 1996, 97. So quite a few moons ago, Sana.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it must be so interesting for you then to have had that experience in the 90s, and now just obviously whilst we've still as a field and a profession got ways to go and you know, make advances, there clearly have been there's been so much progress that has been made. So how is it for you now? I guess, yeah, I'm just thinking about that. Any changes, that stand out to you?
I mean, absolutely. There's been so many changes since that time, thank goodness. Yeah. So I've had quite a few sessions with various different counsellors over the time. Every one of them has been really different, actually. And I like to kind of go to the, to the extremes of, I see a male counsellor of a different origin, or I see a female from a different origin, to get that real experience. And then what it was for me, it didn't always matter if they looked like me. Having that rapport with the counsellor that really was key for me. And the other thing was that being a counsellor in the field, I noticed a little bit, oh well, I'm being a bit choosy, and then I'm now the client. Although I'm the counsellor as well, I'm kind of having two hats on, and you're thinking, well, you know, I'm being a bit choosy here. I'm thinking, well, what's that about? Took that to counselling, definitely, you know, and you know, you learn so much, and it's having that open mind about learning about yourself, not just because you're a counsellor, but you know, we are human, we have our own issues just as anybody else, and I did feel that, oh, I shouldn't have any problems because I'm a counsellor. Actually, it's completely opposite. You know, we learn that for our own personal self, our own personal development, you know, counselling is much needed, whether we stay in the field or not, but it can be a really beautiful experience. Yeah. Or in some cases it doesn't always have to be. Yeah. I had, you know, in the 20+ years, you know, for me, I've had some counsellors who've just not been, it's just not been that client counsellor match for whatever reason.
Yeah. It's really interesting to hear you say that, because, you know, I'm thinking of my experience of choosing counsellors and how different that's been before qualification and after. I think I wasn't as picky before I qualified, And the more, I guess, information I have now about what the process should look like and what would work for me, I've just become so much more picky of what will work for me, which I think it's, for me personally, it's making it so much harder to find a therapist. I remember in one of the internships that I did, there was a supervisor who said something that was really weird at the time, but it makes a lot of sense now, is that sometimes, I guess, finding a counselor or a therapist can feel a little bit like dating, like you have to find the right fit. And only then will it, really work and click. And I think that's just that's a really difficult part of the process of finding that right fit. So yeah.
Yeah, that resonates with me. I think because, being a therapist, having undergone, whatever training, and each of us here, I think we've all gone through different training courses, but then it opens your mind and your eyes to exactly kind of what you just said, Manaal, what the process should look like, how it should feel, and maybe some of the, and I think expectations as well. So I'm just thinking back to my experience. I mean, I've got two very different experiences, I can say. So one, when I was doing the counselling psychology doctorate, we had to undergo therapy, which I think was really helpful, because, we kind of talk this walk, but how many of us actually kind of walk the talk then, essentially. So I thought that was, and for various reasons, therapists may not access therapy, because just as you said, Sahar, we are human before anything, and each and every one of us, we have our own circumstances, family, social life, and everything else. So there can be so many sometimes internal barriers or obstacle, as well as external, and we might get into that a little bit. But just going back, so the kind of two contrasting experiences, I can say. One, when I was on the course and I had to access therapy, and we were told, right, you have to have X amount of hours each year, because the course was 3 years. And I remember, I very much, and I was honest with myself, and I kind of knew this. I wasn't in the right mental space, or space where I was kind of willing to really immerse myself into the experience, open up, really come with stuff, and be vulnerable, and vulnerable in the sense of, come in there as much as possible, and keeping such an open mind, and allowing myself to kind of just engage in this process with the therapist, and let things come up naturally, rather than having any filters or kind of maybe internal no-go zones, right? So this was on the doctorate, and I went for 3 years. And for me, it very much then was like a tick box exercise. I had to do this for the course, and I know that this isn't it's not the best way to look at it, but I had to be honest then, and I have to be honest now, because I think this is so important. In terms of, if we are thinking about accessing therapy, and I can say this from my personal experience, I really had to be in that right space where I was willing, and somewhat ready. I don't know exactly how ready one can be for therapy. So that was a very different experience. But now that I have qualified, I said to myself, I'm going to continue again with personal therapy, and this time round it's so different, because just like you both were saying, I did kind of do some research and find a suitable therapist. There was one who I saw previously, and I didn't feel it was quite suited to what I needed. So then I continued searching, and I'm sure we hear this so much from our clients as well. We kind of go through the same process. But being in therapy now, I have so much more of a willingness to just immerse myself and be open, and see kind of where this journey is going to take me. So it's really two very, very different experiences that I can talk about and think about, really.
That's quite wonderful to hear, actually. Alhamdulillah, that's really lovely to hear. Because I'm actually now also thinking about, going into therapy again, and it's like, oh, now who do I choose?
Yeah.
There's so many more to choose from. And it's almost like I've got this whole box of sweeties. Which one do I want to go for?
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's great. I think as a therapist as well, when we're in the client chair ourselves, I've always felt that, I'm a client first. So it's almost, I have to let go of being the therapist, because I know what the therapist is going to say and I know what's going to happen in the process. But it's really important just to let go and just really, just like a feather, just let go and just be the client, allowing yourself to be the client. I found that had been difficult for me, because you're always kind of on the edge to see, well, I'm a therapist as well, and I know what I'm talking about, kind of thing. But it's allowing yourself to be vulnerable in that sacred space that we have between the counsellor, it's quite amazing experience, actually.
Oh yeah, thank you. And I was thinking that it would be relevant to really talk about in this space, because it's just so real and truthful in terms of that's what I went through. But the interesting thing is, at the time I kind of knew that I just wasn't, because there was so many things. I was on the course, I just had so many things to get done in terms of assignments, clinical work, and everything else. I felt that I didn't have I think it's the emotional availability, even for myself. That might sound funny, but I didn't at that time, because maybe a certain part of me knew that, where if I do kind of allow myself, just kind of how you said, and it's interesting because I was thinking about a feather, and you've said that. I think that's a nice way to kind of put it. I just wasn't in that space, and there were so many things around me that I think made it feel a bit more difficult. But where I am now is just so different, and I have to say, I'm making very good progress with my therapist. I'm happy, but I did have to go through, and just like many of our clients do, it's the same thing of going through the directories, and there are so many out there now, which I think again is amazing. Like we have obviously MCAPN, but we also have the Black Asian Asian Therapist Network as well. So there are directories where it's more targeted to certain populations, and so forth, which helps in terms of accessing therapy. But I think it can be sometimes difficult, because there is so much choice out there and so many profiles and so many different qualifications as well. So I think if I wasn't a therapist, looking at that, it would be quite overwhelming. And I've heard this from many clients as well, and I can understand.
Yeah. I don't know if you found also that when you're in the field and you have access to so many counsellors that you may know, you say, oh gosh, I just wish they weren't my friend. So I'd have to go to counselling with them.
yeah, that's true.
Absolutely, especially when you feel like they kind of tick all of those boxes of what you're looking for, and you're like, oh no, they're too close to my circle or just kind of group that it's not going to serve as the right relationship anymore. So that's kind of disappointing then, because you're so, I guess being part of the field means that you're so aware of everyone else. It's interesting to think about. I've been thinking about, I guess, specific anecdotes of, what good and I guess bad therapy has looked like in our experiences, and I'm wondering if anyone has anything to share about that.
Well, I did have a little bit of counselling when, well, twice actually over the course of 12 years. I've had a few, when my father died, and I went to a white therapist, and I thought, oh, well, is this the right person for me? And it was just amazing just to be held. And I mean, it was amazing just to sit in silence and be held in that space, and to not have to talk for, you know, for a few sessions actually, and just being respected for that. And that was a really good experience, just to have that space where we could just be and just be held, because there was no words in the immediacy to come in, and that was really lovely for me. And then the second time I had some counselling for when my mother passed away 5 years ago, and it was a completely different experience. It was, you know, it was it was somebody that was recommended. I'd known about her, and brilliant for therapist, but it didn't fit for me. It just didn't fit for me. And I think the reason was, when you have someone who reminds you of particular people in your life, and then these barriers come up, and you think, oh, and then the relationship is just it's not going to go any further, because you're not going to allow yourself to then talk or share, or be vulnerable, because almost feeling unsafe in that little bit of time. Yeah. So that was it was eye-opening for me, and I'm thinking, what was that about, you know? And then talking to some friends and colleagues in the field, just to kind of experience, what is that about? I wonder, has anybody else experienced the same? But yeah, I mean, I don't know, have any of you, Manaal or Sahar, experienced the same in your journeys?
Would you like to go ahead, Sahar?
I'm actually thinking. Yeah, go ahead, Manaal.
I think I've had a few experiences of therapy so far. I would say maybe more so long-term than short-term therapists. I think with my experience of good therapy, I think it's allowed me a space to just talk and just really be open. I think for me, culturally, there's so many barriers of what you can say and cannot say, and who you share things with, and, you know, who you can't share with, that having a space like therapy that was confidential and, you know, truly a third party, just makes you feel like there's this huge weight lifted off of you where you can just be. So I think that's what I've found really helpful about good therapy, when I haven't been directed in a certain way, but more so allowed to you know, see where I want to take this. It's funny because the bad experiences always you know, they always like coded stronger in your brain. I actually, and this is quite funny because this was just an assessment session, so the first session, and then I decided to not go in for any sessions after. But there was too much information. There was too much self-disclosure, where you know, the therapist was very open about their upbringing, growing up in a you know, in a majority white neighborhood, and they had told me that it was quite interesting for them to see me as a client, because they felt that growing up in a neighborhood that they didn't see as diverse was boring. And I didn't know how to respond to that, because, you know, for me, first of all, why would you call your in-group boring? But also, why would you say that to a client? That seems like a lot of self-disclosure, especially for a first session. And, you know, and I think that's where it is difficult to realize that you need to actually take off your therapist hat when you're a client. But my therapist hat felt very on at that time, where I was just like, you know, was this necessary? Is this self-disclosure going to help me in any way? And it was clearly unhelpful. But I think what I took from that experience was I almost felt like I was filling and to be really honest, filling like a diversity quota in a way by being a client, which I guess then made me think that if I were to continue having sessions, that would just be seen as like my, the identity side of it would be at the forefront all the time rather than what I'm actually talking about, which I would have found very unhelpful. But yeah, that's the most recent experience I've had of therapy.
No, thanks for sharing that, because I think that's really important, because it blurs then the therapeutic relationship, the agenda as well. What is that about? I mean, it could be that the therapist felt, oh, God, it's to share, making you feel comfortable and all sorts. But now we know that, that space is your space, and almost it's like invitation only space. I'm sitting here, I'll invite you to come into my space when I'm ready. But it almost felt, for me, when you're talking about it, and I've experienced it as well, actually, myself, that, I haven't asked about you, and I don't want to know about you. This is about me.
Yeah. Just to add to that, I think especially as therapists and counselors, it's so important, I feel, that when I go into a session as a client, that it really is about me. Like, I genuinely don't want to, and that's the beauty of the relationship, that it's not about the therapist, because we have to give so much of ourselves in our line of work. It is very rarely about us in the room, because that's how the process is. So I think when that's not, that when that kind of dynamic is not respected, that feels really just difficult to manage.
There's a few things that's been coming to my mind as you two ladies have been speaking. Okay, so I guess the first one, thinking about kind of good experience of therapy. Interestingly for me, I'm the type of person, as much as, I consider myself a talker, I talk, I love to meet new people, socialize and so forth. Being a therapist experiencing therapy, and I actually said this to my current therapist, I said, please don't leave it to me at the start of the session to kind of open it and bring something specifically. I said I struggle with that part, and I kind of let her know from the beginning, and I feel that she responded really well and is flexible in the way that she works, but this maybe was slightly different to how she does usually set up the sessions. So that was, I was honest about that, and I still struggle with just, coming straight into the session and saying, right, okay, this is where I want to pick up. That has gotten better with time, but it was something that I did find difficult, especially at the beginning. So I don't know for you both if it's been similar or different. Excuse me.
Manaal, would you like to go?
Yeah, sure. I think for me, I always felt like I had so much to say before a session that I felt the need to always write things down to just gather my thoughts and think of, okay, what's the most important thing? Because you become so mindful of the time that you have. And especially for me, I don't know when time's passed. Like I'm talking, and it's like, okay, this is the end of the session. You have to leave now. And it's so for me, it was very much about writing things down, because it was almost like a brain dump, where it's like, okay, this is all on my mind. But what was your experience, Sahar?
So I'm just thinking about what Sarah's just mentioned here. Sorry, Sana has mentioned here.
Yeah.
I think for me, I mean, I've been in as a therapist for 25 or 26 years, and every time I see counsellors, I always have a different experience. So I've kind of, it feels like I'm like you have a needle and thread. I'm going in and out almost. and I have similar and dissimilar feelings. But what I wanted to just say was that, because I know we're going to be coming to an end shortly, I wanted to just reflect on the fact that personal therapy is so important in the field that we're in. And it allows us to grow. It allows us to really deepen our empathy even with clients, because we are human, as we talked about earlier. And if we don't have that journey in looking after ourselves and self-care regularly, because it's like we are a machine, we need to be oiled and we need to be looked after, we need to be fed, we need to be nurtured, we need to look after mental health, everything. And I think we become more aware of ourselves, we become more aware of our surroundings and with our clients. And I think it's really healthy that we have these discussions to share how our journeys are, because we know we may be therapists, we are not immune to life and what it brings to us. Certainly for me, more recently, because life can become overwhelming, even as a therapist, as you mentioned earlier. So I think it's being aware of actually, what do I need? It's like, oh, well, do I need a cup of tea, or do I need to ring my friend just to have that girlfriend chat, or actually, do I just need to talk about what's actually going on? It's a bit deeper than that, and being aware I need to get some help. And I think it's owning that and saying, well, actually, it's okay. It's okay to ask for the help. Just as clients come up to us, to make that phone call or that text message or that email, the courage it takes. And I think
absolutely,
sometimes, and I think that's really really important. So,
I think you raised some really, really important points, and just to briefly come in, I know we're coming to the end. For me personally, experiencing it as a therapist, it really is just such a journey, and it's a process, for me, rather than a destination. I like to think about it as a journey, and each and every one of us, so long as we're human, there's constantly things going on in life, family, work, friends, society, global affairs, all of these things, they impact us. Whether we are aware of it or not, whether we're able to admit it or not, and this might, this may be a part of the work. But we're just as you said, we're not immune. The human design is, we feel, and things, they have an impact. So it's interesting and sad as well, just how for me the difference in how mental health is looked upon compared to physical health, because generally speaking, physical health is something, even as therapists, we can talk about that and be more open, in peer groups or different sorts social meetings and so on. But with mental health, it's talked about as if it's something outside of ourselves and it's something over there. But the two, we all have mental health, and we all have a physical health. So yeah, I think just as you were saying, these types of conversations are so important, and I'm so pleased and grateful to all of the organisers, for us having this space.
Manaal, did you have anything before we finish?
Yeah, I think just one thing that I'd like to conclude with is it is really important, I think, for counsellors and therapists to access therapy. And a quote that I had heard not too long ago is, you can only take your clients as far as you've gone. And I think that really resonated with me. Is that if we don't feel that we've experienced being on the other side of that room, we're not, I don't know if we'll be able to fully empathize with what that experience is really like.
Totally agree. Well, we are coming to an end of this beautiful conversation, and it's been great having this time together, and just want to thank you all for being here.
Yeah, thank you. It's been great.
Thank you to both of you. I think it's been a really fruitful conversation.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.